everyone, I'm meteorologist Joe Murgo. Welcome to another edition of That's Cool, where I talk about technology, inventions, things that you may sit there and go, that's pretty cool. And we just passed the autumnal equinox last week, and I thought I may show you a couple of websites that help to teach you a little bit more about the sun. And I'm going to throw in a little education on this and talk a little bit about the reason for the seasons, because I think it's really cool, and it may be different than you actually think. It's not how long the sun is, it's the position in the sky. First of all, let's talk about the sun and the earth. As you know, and this is not drawn to scale, but the earth revolves around the sun, and it's not in a complete circle. It's in what we call an ellipse, and at times we're closer to the sun, and at times we're farther from the sun. Now, did you realize that we're actually closer to the sun? Let me go ahead and take myself off over here. During January than we are in the month of July. In January, we are about 91 million miles from the sun, and in July, we're about 94 million miles from the sun. So what it is actually more the tilt of the earth on its axis as it travels around the sun, and at times the earth is pointed to the sun, and it's the northern hemisphere is pointed to the sun, and it is our summer, and when it's pointed away from the sun, it is our winter, and that affects how the sun strikes the earth. When the earth is pointed toward the sun, the northern hemisphere, the North Pole's in constant daylight, 24 hours a day, and when it's the South Pole at that time, is actually pointed away from the sun and sees no sun at all. And daylight does change. Now, I have a website that I really wanted to share with you about a couple of websites. First of all, this is timeanddate.com, and this is for today, and the position of the sun close to the noon hour. It's out over the Atlantic Ocean, and we're close to the equinox. Equinox stands for equal night, about 12 hours a day and night, and usually, and this is the darkness, where the dark color is, where you have some shading, is twilight. And now the North Pole's not in total darkness, but the sun's not up. They're in twilight. The South Pole, the sun has risen and is going to be up for a while. And on the equinox, these lines go straight up and down. But now we're starting to get some curve to it. And if I move this ahead 4 weeks, and that's what I love about this site. You can just look at this. The sun's kind of out over the Atlantic, but now you see the North Pole's in constant daylight. Places farther from the South Pole are in constant light, and you're starting to get more of a slope where the nights are longer the farther north you are from the equator. And I'm going to go another 4 weeks after that, and this puts us to November. And you can see the area of darkness near the North Pole grows, and how the slope of daylight, it gets smaller and smaller, and there, most of Greenland now is twilight, and that's about it. So, and I'm going to go 4 more weeks. Let's go ahead close to the December solstice, and you can see the North Pole, constant darkness, South Pole, constant light, all the way up to about 66.5 degrees south of the equator is in constant light. And you can see how areas that stay in twilight, and that's about it. And you're talking about parts of Northern Europe and parts of Canada and even Iceland now. So this is really cool at looking at how long the day is and the position of the sun. And, and the farther you are north, the more things change. And I do have a little chart here that I made to help show you. And I took 3 locations, Altoona, our longest day. And, this is a bit of a misnomer. It's not just a single day. A lot of people say the summer solstice is our longest day. It's actually a period. Solstice stands for standing sun. It's a period of about a week to 10 days on either side of that solstice where you have very little change in daylight. And same for the shortest day on the winter solstice and the summer solstice. Again, there's a period. It's not a single day. It's a period where it doesn't change much. And those longest days are around over 15 hours in Altoona. The shortest days around just over 9. So we have a 6-hour difference in our day length between the shortest days and the longest days. Now, Miami, if you've ever noticed, in the winter you go to Miami, the sun's up later. But if you go to Miami in the summer, well, the sun sets earlier. Why? Their daylight doesn't change as much. It only changes about 3 hours. You go up to International Falls in Minnesota, which is even farther to the north, and they have close to an 8-hour difference. And they're not that much farther north to us. So you see how exponentially things increase. And then you have Barrow. It actually changed the name, but I can't pronounce the new one. And a lot of people still know Barrow, Alaska. They spend 84 days in constant sunlight, and then they're dark for 67 days. They turn dark here fairly soon, and we're going to talk about that coming up. So, if you go up farther to the north, this is what you see. This is a time lapse of the sun where it's high in the sky, highest in the sky, and at midnight where it's lowest at the sky. The sun is constantly up. And when I was in Alaska, we ate dinner at 10:30 at night. And people, my family was sitting there and they were all warm, complaining how hot it was in the sun with people in jet skis on the water behind us. And we played bocce at midnight. And you don't need lights. They have midnight baseball leagues up farther to the north. Now, I wasn't in an area where the sun was up all this high. I was in an area that it just barely dipped below the horizon and we had a little bit of twilight. All right, so it gets warm in Alaska, but the places to the north, it doesn't get super hot. Because there's snow and ice and it reflects some of the sun's energy, but there's also how high in the sky the sun gets tells you how much energy comes down. Think about a flashlight. When a flashlight is shining straight down, you got an orange circle, but you tilt that flashlight and that same light's coming out of the flashlight, but it's hitting more of an area. So the same thing happens on the earth. When the sun is high in the sky, it's more intensely hitting that location and giving you more intense energy per unit area than it's low in the sky. So I have another cool website, and I love this. And as you can tell, I'm excited about talking this. And this is called Gaisma. And I'll have a link here in the story. It's GAISMA.com. And you can look up at different locations, and it talks about the sunrise and sunset times. And this time of the year, we're losing the day length changes the most right around the equinox. We lose about 3 minutes a day, and we're still in that period. And a month on either side, that's when the daylight changes the most. And then over the solstice, it barely changes at all. All right. So, for example, a week is about 18 minutes shorter. A month is about an hour and 15 minutes shorter. We go 3 months to the winter solstice, and now we're 2 hours and 27 minutes shorter. So we're at that time, and you notice the time changes mostly. Look at it, between 2 and 3 months, it barely changes. But between 1 and 2 months, it changes a lot. And in the first 2 months, it changes a lot. But it's not just the day length, it's how high the sun gets in the sky. And I love this graph. All right? And I'm going to make this bigger so we can see it even better. All right. So what does this chart do? And it teaches you so much about the path. And there's a chart and there's a key on the side of this. So the gray line here is the gray line above the orange line is the equinox. And the orange line is the sun path that's going on today. And I shot this a little ahead of time. But you can see we're close to where the equinox is. And the sun gets, and here's the horizon. This is the sun rising, 10 degrees high in the sky, 20, 30, 40, almost 50 degrees up high in the sky this time of the year. All right? Almost. It's nowhere straight overhead where the sun would be most intense. And we're going toward the winter solstice where the sun, again, rises later, stays low in the sky. And when it's low in the sky and not out as much, we get colder. The lower the sun is, the less effective it is, because the sun's energy is spread out more on the earth, and you get less per unit of area, and also more gets scattered with the atmosphere. And so, this is really cool to see the path of the sun. And let me also show you this. And so in the summer solstice, our sun gets pretty high. It gets close, it's about 73 degrees high in the sky at noon. In the winter, it's about 26 degrees high from the horizon. 90 degrees would be straight overhead. That's when the sun is most effective. So if you look at the effectiveness here, 90 degrees, the sun's 100% effective. 73 degrees, where we're close to the summer solstice, look at that. The sun's pretty effective, and you know that. It feels pretty warm to you. But then, around the equinox, it becomes 76% effective. And then, when we go to winter solstice, it's only 44% effective, 26 degrees high in the sky. So the sun isn't as effective. Let's take a look at, and the nice thing about this website, Gizmo, is you can look at different locations. Let's take a look at Barrow, and again, the name change, it's you, and I cannot pronounce it. People have tried to teach me from Alaska. But, we lose 3 minutes a day. How about this? They're losing 9 minutes a day. And in 3 months, their day is 10 hours shorter. All right? And in between there's no daylight. Or just, in between there's no daylight. So you can see 2 months and there's no sunrise and sunset. And that's actually the length there. I was wrong. I was reading before. This is the length between dawn and dusk. So they get a little dawn, they get a little dusk. That's about it. But they don't have a sunrise and sunset. So actually, I stand corrected, because in 2 months it's 11 hours shorter, their day, because that's how much their sunrise and sunset is. Now, let's take a look at the path of the sun over Barrow. And you can see in the summer, the sun stays always over the horizon. It dips close to the horizon, but stays up all the time. Never gets very high in the sky. And in fact, it's 10, 20, 30, 40. It's weaker than what we have over the equinox. On their equinox, the sun is weaker than what we have in winter. And in their winter, the sun stays below the horizon the whole time. Isn't that cool? And here's Key West. Key West, Florida, day doesn't change as much. They're losing 2 minutes a day now. 2 months, an hour and 13, way less than us. And again, they only lose 9 more minutes after that for the last month. So most of the change happens toward the equinox. And look at that. The sun gets directly overhead. 100% effective. And on the equinox, they're pretty much where we are at our summer. So it's pretty warm down there. And the sun's pretty strong. And on their winter solstice, they're still doing pretty good. It gets 10, 20, 30, over 40 degrees high in the sky, which is close to where we are on a day like today. All right. I hope I taught you something, and as you could tell, I was excited to share this website with you. I know it's a bit geeky, but that's cool, and once in a while I'll get geeky. I do have an interview to talk about how you can treat muscles at home. I have an interview with a doctor that got pushed back, so we have some cool things that are coming up, and I'll share those in the coming weeks, and if you have something that you think is cool, share it to me at Murgo at WTAJTV.com.